Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Not bad. Well, you never know until the light goes on how the voice is going to be. I'm here, folks. I'm about 75%, but I could not stay out any longer. It's Friday. Let's hit it. Let's keep going.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Hey, Friday, you paying attention up there, bud? We're not in L.A. At least if we are, I don't know. Where are we? Doesn't matter. As long as I'm here, doesn't matter where here is. Great to have you with us, my friends. The telephone number, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. You can begin to fade the music out now so I don't have to shout over it. Thank you. Could you get rid of the music? What is going on up there? All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize being out the past couple of days. What was it, Tuesday? I think Tuesday, I sound worse today to myself than I did on Tuesday. But you get these things. When I get a cold or a fever and a near flu, it's always upper chest congestion, gets caught in the throat and moves up. And I just knew it. Could feel it coming on. You just know. And Tuesday after the program, I flew up to Minneapolis. There was, everybody's good friend Vince Flynn passed away 2 years ago, and he was in the midst of writing a new book called The Survivor. And Vince's family chose an author named Kyle Smith to finish it. And the book was finished, and it was released this past Tuesday, called The Survivor. Kyle Mills was the author that finished the book. And they had a little ceremony at St. Thomas Academy in the gymnasium there, which was named after Vince. He was such a big guy in Minneapolis and throughout the state of Minnesota. He was just tremendously unilaterally loved. And they called about, a month ago and said they were going to do this, a ceremony, sort of a little seminar on Vince's life and his writing to kick off the sale of the book, and asked me if I'd come up and be part of roundtable discussion to do it. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So I flew up there after the program, and that didn't help, is the point. So it's 3 hours up there, and they put me on first. So I did about 25-minute interview, and I didn't do any media. They asked, would you do some media? I said, no, you don't want me doing any media because they will not ask me about Vince Flynn. They'll ask me about Hillary or whatever stuff, and it won't be production. So I didn't do any media. I just did the 25-minute Q&A with the lead anchor at the big Minneapolis TV station. It was great. And then got back on the plane and flew home. So I got back about, it was 3 in the morning, because it's 4 hours coming back because you lose the time zone. And I knew when I left here on Tuesday that Wednesday was going to be impossible, and it was. I had this hacking cough. It was just a mess. And Thursday, a little bit better yesterday. But at least I had some energy yesterday. So I'm going to just roll it all together. I could have just taken the rest of the week off. Most hosts would have, and just chalked it up and say, I don't take many sick days anyway. But there's too much going on. You believe the Secretary or the future Speaker of the House having an affair? Do you believe I've seen Bob Livingston, Newt Gingrich, this guy, McCarthy? It's about time this becomes a resume enhancement for us instead of something that wipes us out. Something like this happening on the left, it's a big-time resume enhancement. It proves that they're hip. It proves that they're pro-women. Proves that they're virile. It proves that they're attractive to women and so forth. But on us side, it does nothing but destroy us. I know. I understand why. But this whole story, this is easy for me to say, and you are free to think that I am doing a snow job here, but I'm not. You're free to think what you want, and you may get mad at me for telling you this, but Snerdley sent me a note last night as though this is the first he was hearing about this. Are you kidding me? You had not heard about this affair until yesterday? Are you really kidding? This is years old stuff. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, rumors, and I just totally stay away from it because it's all going to come out in the wash anyway at some point. The interesting thing about this is the drive-by media is acting like all of Washington's been turned upside down. You know, the lesson to learn here is that Kevin McCarthy and Renee Elmers. Did I say something that's not known yet? I did? Oh, if they're denying this? Denials. Oh, really? Denials? Oh, okay. Well, then I guess what I've known about for many, many months is not true. Forget it. I'm sorry. They're denying it? Well, anyway, what I was going to say, folks, with the drive-by media acting like this is totally shaking up, why isn't the media acting happy? Why isn't the media ecstatic that the Republicans are imploding this way? Instead of why are they worried the Republicans are imploding? Have you figured that out? Or has that hit you in that regard yet? What it should tell you is that McCarthy obviously is a Washington insider, and his fall from grace as future speaker obviously is bad news to the insiders or the establishment in Washington, both parties. And the reason for that is it is perceived that Ted Cruz and the House Conservative Caucus are behind this, these Tea Party yokels, and it is viewed as these upstart conservatives taking control of the House, and they are outsiders. And so you see that the insider elites are bound together not by ideology, but by class. If they were bound together by ideology, there wouldn't be a Republican in the establishment in Washington. There wouldn't be a Republican lead allowed in. But the establishment in Washington is made up of people of both parties. The people not in it are conservatives. But Republicans, moderate Republicans, liberal Republicans, communist Republicans, and all Democrats are in the establishment. Conservative Republicans aren't. Conservative Republicans, it is said, have claimed a scalp here. And they might also get Renee Elmers. Sorry, should I not have mentioned that? What are you laughing at so hard? Really, have you ever, folks, have you ever been privy to something everybody knows, or you thought everybody knew, and then when it hits, everybody acts like they had no idea? That's how I'm sitting here right now. Am I going to have to deny this? I am? Okay, well, we're not on a 10-minute delay here. We can just bleep everything that's happened, right, and start over? Okay, well then, forget it. You know, I'm probably chalk it up to the deliriousness of the common cold virus. The ravages of the cold virus have rendered my equilibrium out of whack, and I have not known what I'm talking about here for the first 10 minutes. And I apologize. I get, this is what happens. This is what happens when you show up and you shouldn't show up. It's what happens when the guardrails are down. Well, what I know is that Newt offered himself as speaker, and that they want Paul Ryan to be the replacement now for McCarthy. And that there is, the people on both sides of that. Ryan is perceived as somebody who has slowly evolved to a progressive insider establishment kind of Republican, the Romney VP candidate. Romney has, I saw his name. Did he offer himself up, or did somebody suggest Romney to be? No, I'm not making this up. Don't tell me I'm making this up. Don't tell me I didn't see that. I saw Romney's name tossed in. I read something that either Romney had offered or somebody had suggested to get Newt. Why somebody call Bob Livingston and see if he was denied the first time. Maybe he wants to give it another go. Grab audio soundbite number 3. Friday, if I ask for number 3, are you going to play 3? No. Okay. Because the show open had us in L.A. So I'm just checking. This is yesterday on C-SPAN's Washington Journal. And the guest is Robert Costa, who is of the Washington Post. He's a national political reporter now. Bob Costa, Robert Costa, not related to Bob Costas. Robert Costa used to be at National Review, and National Review Online, which meant that he was conservative. Just information. Now, the Q&A with the viewers, we have a soundbite here. A guy from Wisconsin named Paul called. He said, I don't think McCarthy will ever be Speaker. He's too honest. He told the truth about the Benghazi Committee witch hunt. And not only that, he's talking about repealing Obamacare. When are they going to get over that one?
The problem for many House Republicans is they would like to see maybe a lot of other people stand up to be competitors to McCarthy, but no one had the will to run. McCarthy's there as the de facto next speaker because he's willing to do it, and he's willing to have those kind of exchanges. Listening members of the House, people who listen to Rush Limbaugh, and I mean this respectfully of all conservative talk radio, by listening to those voices, it creates a new kind of dynamic in House Republican politics because there, as I said, those expectations that a push for aggression, even if it's not possible.
So Robert Costa there says, if you're able to translate that, says that there aren't a whole lot of House Republicans who want to be Speaker because of having to deal with me. And what did he say? The demand that I would make and my talk show brethren and sisterin for aggression or aggressiveness or just simply defending the cause, standing up for it. They don't want that. And Boehner mentioned me. Do we have that soundbite? I thought we had this. Boehner got mad at me once. Boehner was talking about when he came to the House, there was only CNN and there was only this one talk show or something. Pardon the sniffles here, folks. I thought we had the Boehner bite here when I went through the roster. Apparently not. But anyway, that's Robert Costa, and there's probably more truth to this than not, even though it was on C-SPAN and nobody heard it. There probably is, within the Republican caucus, some trepidation over having to deal with, talk radio. It's a euphemism. Talk radio means the base of the party. Talk radio means the grassroots. Talk radio means Tea Party, what have you. It means the people out there who make this country work. It means people outside Washington. Talk radio just become a code phrase to use to either signify me or, in larger measure, the entire Republican grassroots base. New York Magazine. See, I knew I was not off how the media is handling Kevin McCarthy's rumored affair. Okay, and that's by Margaret Hartman. Gingrich open to return. New Republic, the Republican House today was more melodramatic than high school. That's for sure. It does look. It does look like it's high school, like musical chairs or prom night or something weird stuff. And Frank Luntz is out there saying that this story of a rumor is crap. There's nothing to it. There never has been anything to it. It's all just total 100% BS. So there's that. And then Trump in Vegas with the Hispanic woman storming his stage, praising him and espousing her love for Trump and her support for Trump. Gentleman's Quarterly has an absolutely obscene piece about Ben Carson. It really is obscene. It's not even journalism. And the title of the story is the F-bomb, Ben Carson. And that's the headline. F *** K, Ben Carson. Now you have the F-bomb Obama and have some conservative media people write it. It would be the end of that person's career and then some. It would be the end of the publication that ran the story. It'd be the end of their business. So there's that, and there's all kinds of other news out there, too, that has nothing to do with what's going on in the House, Republican leadership, the Speaker of the House, all kinds. I can't wait to get to it all, in fact. So, plus your phone calls, given that it's Open Line Friday. So we're in L.A., and we'll be back at it right after this. So, Snerdley, I got an email. They said that opening was very weird. It was great to have me back and all that. Voice is a welcome. Well, it was a very weird. What was weird about it, other than it's from L.A.? What was weird about the Open? No, you have to help me because I'm 75% here today. I'm really, folks. I'm struggling to stay focused. So what's weird? What was weird about the Open? The shift from. You mean the confirmation? The confirmation. All right. Well, look. Here the UK Daily Mail has a story here. Did rumors of a love affair, Kevin McCarthy, a married congresswoman, torpedo his elevation to House Speaker? Look, did he even have a path to getting the votes? I mean, everybody's acting like it's automatic that he was going to get it. But anyway, let me state, the story here in the UK Daily Mail acknowledges the strong rumors and that they've been around for years, but that the female participant vigorously denies them. Well, don't they all? Isn't that the rule of thumb? You deny, 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 deny. Isn't that right, Wendy? You just deny, 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 deny. No matter what kind of evidence there is, you just deny it. No matter what, you deny it. Here's the Boehner soundbite that I was looking for. This is August 3rd, 2015. It was on the Golf Channel, David Feherty's show. And remember, this is after playing Robert Costa on C-SPAN, essentially saying that the Republican potentials for Speaker of the House, few of them want it because of me. And here's Boehner. This is August 3rd of this year. And he's explaining to Feherty. Feherty says there's less bipartisanship today than there used to be.
20 years ago, when we won the first Republican majority in 40 years, there was one radio talk show host that nobody had ever heard of. There was one cable news channel that just did news. And you look at today, you've got hundreds of radio talk show hosts all trying to outdo themselves, right, going further right and further right and further right. You've got all these cable news channels, and all they do are politics. And it's tending to either push or pull people into one of two camps.
You know what that sounds like? This sounds like, remember, it was, I don't know, 1993, 94. There was a Time magazine cover, is Rush Limbaugh bad for democracy? Is too much democracy, they asked. Were there too many informed people? Were too many people more informed than they'd ever been for their own good? That was a serious story. And Boehner's basically saying the same thing. 20 years ago, we came into the House. You had one cable news channel, CNN. You had a brand new, he was talking about me, the new talk shows nobody ever heard of, which was true. When I launched, nobody ever heard of me. And he said, now look what's happened. And he thinks all of this has pushed everything right or made it all political. And he's got his timeline all wrong. The people that changed are the people that won the House in 1994. Had they stayed conservative and had they remained true. But hell, even that Republican freshman class was forced out. They got rid of a lot of those people inside of 6 or 8 years, too. So hang tough. Be right back. It's Open Line Friday. Rush Limbaugh, half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. F. Chuck Todd here on the Today Show today. Savannah Guthrie talking to him, and she said, so, Chuck, what happens next? You have a vacant job over there in the House of Representatives, speakership. It's a powerful job, and yet you don't have people falling all over themselves to fill it. Why is that?
Nobody wants it for the very reasons why John Boehner's leaving the job. The place is impossible to run right now. It's going to be impossible to run during a presidential election year. The same forces that are dividing the Republican Party, Trump, Carson, Fiorina, from Bush and Rubio and all that stuff, these are the forces in the House that are basically saying, we don't want the same people running the House. So I think McCarthy was going to be Boehner 2.0. I think a lot of conservatives saw that, and I think that's why they were trying to torpedo this thing.
What it boils down to, it's these forces versus the voters. When was the last time, and I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but what F. Chuck Todd's saying here basically is all of these establishment types are afraid of the voters. They're afraid of us. When he said nobody wants it for the very reason Boehner's leaving the job. What is the reason Boehner's leaving the job? What we have to assume here, the reason Boehner's leaving the job is he doesn't like being criticized. These guys forget. They committed things to us when they ran for office. They told us they were conservative. They told us they were going to stop Obama. They made a great point of this. They told us to rest easy. Mitch McConnell did it. Every one of them said that they know that that's what they were elected to do. They campaigned on some variation of the premise that they were serious. They were going to stop Obama, but they don't, and they haven't really seriously tried. And apparently they're not going to, and they don't. There isn't anybody who wants to take the job under the or with the realization that he's going to be at odds with the voters for the rest of the term. So how committed are these establishment types? I think what it points out, or what it illustrates, is that the inside the Washington Beltway establishment really doesn't care about voters and public opinion and all that, and doesn't even want to have to deal with it. And whoever's in this position is going to get the brunt of the criticism. And so it's in the old days, and it wasn't that long ago, folks, when a political party was the loser of a presidential election or other elections, that party would honestly assess where it had gone wrong with the voters and would attempt, to make it right with the voters. And by that I mean the party would attempt to, even if it was just for show, they would attempt to change or modify their beliefs in order to be relevant to the voters, because it was the voters who determined who won. And what's changed is, as far as these guys are concerned, it's the donors who determine who wins, and therefore it's the donors to whom they have to be loyal, not voters. And they don't even want to go through the motion system. Now there's not even any pretense of mollifying the voters. There's not even any attempt. I mean, this is, folks, as recently as these years running. This might have been the 2002 midterms. It was whatever year that I was invited to do election night coverage on NBC with Tim Russert and Brokaw. I think that was 2002. And it was, because what happened in that election year, that was the year of the Wellstone Memorial. Now, the rule of thumb is in off-year elections that the party in power loses big in Congress, particularly in House races, because there's always anger at the new president after 2 years. And the voters traditionally, want to put something in to stop what they don't like the new guy's doing or whatever. So that meant that the Democrats are going to have a huge 2002 midterm. But then the Wellstone Memorial came along, and they totally alienated the percentage of the American voting population that saw it. I mean, it wasn't over the top. It was supposed to be a memorial/funeral type thing, and it was one of the most viciously mean-spirited partisan events. A lot of Wellstone's Republican colleagues showed up. I mean, it was a memorial, and they were booed and harassed out of the place. And the Republicans ended up gaining seats. And I'll never forget Brokaw that night. I mean, they were just stunned over what was happening. The Democrats were supposed to just make tracks that night. It was supposed to be huge, and they were losing everywhere. And I remember they came to me when it was all over and asked me what had happened, and I gave them my analysis, and I chalked it up as Wellstone Memorial. I said, these people just have totally misinterpreted where the people of this country are, so forth. Anyway, the next day, this is what's different. The next day, the Democrats went out, and this was the second time this had happened in like 5 years or 6. Pardon me. The Democrats went out, and they didn't mean it, but they started talking about how they were going to have to maybe shift some of their positions to get more in line with value voters, because there were, in the 2002 midterms, it was a bunch of people that showed up to vote on morality issues, according to exit polls, that had turned the tide. And the Democrats the next day, the next 2 weeks, didn't mean it, but they at least went out and said that they realized now they were out of touch with so many Americans, and they were shocked, and they were going to have to do something about it. That's gone now. That doesn't even happen. There's no pretense now of a party that loses admitting that it's maybe lost touch with the American people and needs to do things to get back in touch. This would be a great opportunity. One of, I don't know how many opportunities the Republicans, when the first opportunity Republicans had to coalesce a huge majority of voters in this country was Obamacare. Back in 2010, the 2010 gives birth to the Tea Party. The Tea Party springs to life spontaneously. I mean, literally effervescently from the dust. There is no leader. There is no official Tea Party per se. It's just a bunch of people. They start showing up at town hall meetings. They're outraged at two things, mainly, many more, but they're outraged at Obama's relentless, endless spending and what it meant for the future of their kids and their grandkids. And they were just outraged at Obamacare, the nationalization of the healthcare system. And if you looked at polling data back then, the Republicans could have aligned themselves with easily a 60% majority of Americans on just two issues. And they could have created for themselves a huge, loyal base. And they didn't do it. They did the opposite. What they did with the Democrats did. They ran away from it because the Tea Party is a bunch of kooks. And, this is for a lot of us. This is when the lights really went on. I mean, they'd been burning somewhat dimly. There had been some doubts about the modern-day Republican Party and whether it was conservative in some people's minds. But this erased all doubts when the Republican Party made no effort to form a giant governing majority coalition people based on issues. And there have been a number of other incidents like that since 2010. Immigration is one, where the Republican Party is just sitting on an opportunity to become a huge representative of a majority of thought in this country. And they have never once taken advantage of it. This is another one of those. There's no thought to anybody in the House who is representative of a majority of the thinking of the base of the party becoming speaker. Nope, it's all in the hat here, and they're running around. Who is the next establishment guy up? And the next establishment guy up, whoever it is, they can't find one that wants to do it because the establishment guy doesn't want to have to take the heat from the voters. The Republican Party is sitting here on a massive potential majority that could carry into the presidential election. But they don't want to do it because it would require them joining forces with whatever you want to get, conservatives, call it Tea Party or whatever, but they just don't want to do it. So instead, they come up with candidates for speaker that we are supposed to think, well, better than Boehner. Look at this guy's conservative. He's been conservative, voted conservative, this, that. They still continue to play the game of how can we fool them today. And people on our side have become too sophisticated to be fooled by the game of how can we fool them today. So to me, sitting here in my ravaged state, it just seems to me like another golden opportunity slithering out of their hands because they've never really even tried to grasp it. Open Line Friday. Rush Limbaugh with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. This is Bob in Coronado, California. Glad you called, sir, and welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Rush. My comment is this. The Republicans need to pick a winner, somebody who wants to win, not somebody who wants to get along. And I have a very brief example of what I mean. We recently had some Planned Parenthood hearings, and I was shocked beyond belief that you could watch that hearing and not one Republican put a video up on the screen and ask Cecile Richards a difficult question like, what does she mean by intact cranium? What does she mean? What is she selling? What is on this revenue line? And I say that because back in the days of concentration camps, people like Ike went in with cameramen and took pictures and completely changed the way we would picture a concentration camp. They weren't just skinny people who were malnourished and so forth. Once you saw the pictures, you were shocked for life. We remember that 70 years later. Why are they not showing the pictures of Planned Parenthood? Do we not want to win? Are we just trying to...
I know. Why do you think they didn't?
I don't know. Maybe they think they're offensive. I can't imagine. I was mind-boggled.
Well, let me see if I can help. I think maybe the fact that they didn't really ask Cecile Ma Richards any really hard questions, and I think the fact that they didn't show any video evidence of the butchery going on at Ma Richards' joint is because what they were really doing was simply putting on a show designed to prove to people like you that they are defending the cause. There really was no intent to do any damage to Planned Parenthood. There wasn't really any intent. There's something, they probably decided they had to do this because it had so outraged and shocked the base. They had to go through the motions of this. But they weren't really going to get to the bottom of it. You talk about it in terms of winning. I know what you mean. And there are theories abound that some of them on the Republican side don't want to win because they don't want to work at the job of actually running that place and governing it from the standpoint of being aggressive and advancing an agenda. It's a lot of work to do that. It's very hard. The media is going to be crucifying you every day, and some of them just don't want to put up with that. I think the money people behind Planned Parenthood carry a big stick, so I think they just basically put on a show hoping to mollify people like you.
But, Rush, don't we have fighters at all? I mean, I would think there'd be some 35 or 40-year-old conservative Republican that would just...
Well, they've got to get on the committee first. I mean, they've got to be assigned to the committee first, and who does that?
I know.
I mean, you're asking a valid question. Where are the fighters? Join the club here. We got 7 years. We have 7 years of the most radical, extreme, leftist political agenda that this country has seen since Woodrow Wilson. And there hasn't been any real attempt to stop it. Inside the Beltway, inside Washington, there has not been a severe effort to stop it. I've got a piece here in the stack that is a really good piece on how the economy today is worse than it was during the Great Depression. And it makes the following point. The Great Depression on the population was less then, obviously, than it is today. You know what the total number of unemployed people was during the Depression? 12.5 million. Today it's 46, 48 million unemployed. The soup lines, the Great Depression in the pictures, they exist today, except they don't have to stand in line at a soup kitchen. They get an EBT card. They get a debit card, and they go redeem the debit card. The government, point of the story is the government's done a great job at hiding depressions. But we're actually in worse second. 96 million Americans not working, and there hasn't been any pushback against this. 5.1% unemployment rate's an outright lie. So my point is that you're wanting pushback on Planned Parenthood, you're wanting fighters. Where is it? My point to you, there isn't, and there hadn't been any for 7 years. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why this job of speaker, again, people are are looking at it as an opportunity to get a fighter in there. Somebody's going to finally stand up and lead the House in an effort of stopping Obama from doing what he intends to do for the remaining year that he has, or whatever it is, 14 or 15 months now. And it's clear the establishment doesn't want any part of that. They don't want any stopping. They don't want to have to put up a fight. They don't want any part of that. And at some point, that's the battle. People who want to fight, people who don't, and how to mollify those of us who want to fight into accepting people who aren't going to. Anyway, I got to take a break here. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go away. Grab soundbite number 5. Here's Charlie Rose. This is This Morning on CBS. And he's having a chat with John Dickerson of Face the Nation, talking about this race in the House for speakership.
Can anybody control these people that represent the Freedom Caucus? Can anybody in the Republican Party deal with them?
For right now, it doesn't look like anybody can.
Because unless they get their way, they're willing to take the House down.
Well, yeah, because they think the House has been selling out Republicans and conservatives for the last many years, and it's finally their chance to stop that.
So, Charlie Rose here, this is the voice of establishment thinking here, by the way. Can anybody control these out-of-control conservatives? These freedom people? Can anybody control them? I mean, for crying out loud, they're willing to take the House down? That's what happens. See, when the establishment is taking it on the chin, that means the government is under assault and attack, and is falling or is about to fall. And Dickerson had it more right than wrong in his answer. The views expressed by the host on this program documented to be almost always right, 99.8% of the time. It's Friday, so let's roll, folks.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Open Line Friday. I forgot to mention, for those of you new to the program, Open Line Friday, you talk about anything. It doesn't have to be this speaker race. It doesn't have to be politics, although I think everything is politics these days. No matter what, I think everything's got a political element to it. But whatever. It can be social. It can be cultural. It can be pop culture. Books, movies, TVs, whatever is on your mind, question or comment, have at it. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program, and the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. A story from Breitbart here. John Kasich is ripping critics of Obamacare for not understanding the Bible. This was during an appearance this past Tuesday before the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The Ohio governor, Republican presidential candidate John Kasich, offered to buy Bibles for people who do not agree with his decision to increase the welfare state. Kasich, as everybody knows, agreed to Obamacare's Medicaid expansion in Ohio. And his defense of that is this. He said, look at Medicaid expansion. Do you know how many people are yelling at me? I go out to events where people yell at me. You know what I tell them? I say there's a book. It's got a new part and it's got an old part. They put it together. It's a remarkable book. If you don't have one, I'll buy you one. It talks about how we treat the poor. Sometimes you just have to. And so Kasich's implication here is that people who criticize Obamacare are ignorant about what it says about Obamacare in the Bible. Now, admittedly, the Bible doesn't say anything about Obamacare. But what is Obamacare? Obamacare is the government taking over the health care system of an entire country and mandating who is going to pay for it, who is going to get it, who isn't going to get it, i.e. the death panels, what the penalties are if you don't abide by all of these rules. And Governor Kasich is insinuating here that all of this is in the Bible. Because what all this really adds up to is charity and being good and nice and understanding of your fellow man. What Obamacare does is uses the IRS and a number of other federal agencies to force upon people their behavior and acquiescence to this. And Kasich is trying to tell people, yeah, it's right there in the Bible. And see, this is where welfare equals charity. And this is how charitable organizations have been swept up, almost hoovered up, into buying into big government welfare programs because to them they think it equals charity. But it isn't charity because it's all commandeered. It's not freely given. It's mandated. And there are penalties if you don't pay up. Governor Kasich said, I had a conversation with one of the members of the legislature the other day, and I said, I respect the fact that you believe in small government. I do, too. I also know that you're a person of faith. Now, when you die and get to the meeting with St. Peter, he's probably not going to ask you much about what you did about keeping government small, but he is going to ask you what you did for the poor. You better have a good answer. So that's pretty explanatory. And remember, Governor Kasich was part of the Republican freshman class that came in 1994. Well, they were elected in 94, came in 1995. And Governor Kasich ran the Budget Committee. I'll never forget the hearing where they actually took the vote on balancing the budget for the first time in 100,000 years or whatever it was, and he was being hooted and hollered out of the place by the Democrats. And he sat there, and he just took it, he let them get it out of their system. He said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And ever since then, it's been like I don't want to characterize it, but I'm really not sure. But from that point on, Governor Kasich's conservatism sort of, he'll get mad at this, but it started evolving or changing a little bit. And this is what happened. It's O'Sullivan's first law. Any individual or group of people that are not actively conservative each and every minute of each and every day will eventually become liberal. Speaking of video, Cookie, I want you to try to find something. I should have mentioned this on Monday. How many of you saw Homeland Sunday night? The season premiere. Season premiere of Homeland, in one short video exchange, put the war on terror against militant Islam in the best perspective it has ever been stated. The character Peter Quinn did it. He was brought in after having returned from undercover work in Syria. And all of these CIA executives are here to pick his brain and to tell him how he's wrong and to find holes in his story. And he's totally exasperated. They want to send in a couple special forces teams to quiet this down or quiet that down. And he basically says to us, you have been over there and I have. These people, since the 7th century, have been focused on one thing. They read one thing. It's all they read. They don't read anything else. They don't talk about anything else. They're not interested in anything else. And that's all they're committed to. And, of course, he's talking about the Quran. And they are committed to wiping out everybody who disagrees with them because they're infidels. And he says, if you people in this room think that you're going to be able to send us a couple of special forces teams here or there or drop a bomb here or there or do whatever to fight this, then I'm out of here because you haven't the slightest idea what we're up against. I'm paraphrasing it, but I'm telling you it was the most powerful, and kudos to the scriptwriters of this show. It's a Howard Gordon show. He was part of the 24 team. Howard Gordon and Alex Ganza. And I think this is season 5 of Homeland, if I'm not mistaken. And it's set in Berlin this year. And it looks like it's going to be another barn burner of a season. But this particular segment, and Cookie, it's in the first 20 minutes if you can get hold of the episode. I should have told her. It just something in the Kasich story reminded me of this, and otherwise I would have mentioned it to her earlier. If we don't get to it today, we certainly will get to it next week, because you've got to hear this, because it in fact, this is exactly what somebody serious in our government ought to be saying, and ought to be, if not saying, thinking. Because it's just dead on what we're up against. And it explains or expresses anyway the utter futility with the way we're going about dealing with it and stopping it. And his point, you can't appease these people, you can't be nice, as that they're not interested in any of that. They only read one thing. They don't read what you're saying about them. They don't read what you think about them. They don't care. They read one thing, and that's all they read, and that's all they have read since the 7th century. Now, he makes the point that they are committed to this like you don't know commitment. Making the point that we are not committed in any way, shape, manner, or form to stopping them. Rolling Stone. Now, I don't know why Rolling Stone's still in business. The only reason they're still in business is because they're an accredited leftist publication. This is the publication that was totally discredited for making up a story about campus rape at the University of Virginia. It was a bunch of white frat boys out of control. The whole story was made up. It has been proven to have been made up. And the defense of the story was, well, yeah, maybe, but we know it happens. And so this story is a good eye-opener. The Rolling Stone's still out there publishing, still in business, is an illustration of how corrupt the entire left-wing mainstream media has become and is. But even at that, this is a long piece, but it is interesting and relevant because it treats Hillary Clinton honestly as a leftist publication. The headline of this piece is, "There is no real Hillary Clinton." And the subhead is, "People are not meant to be relaunched as often as phones, but here we are." And basically, this is a piece on how incompetent Hillary Clinton is, on how futile the effort is to make her president, how she's totally unsuited. She's not real. She's not a human being. She can't come across as one. She's a human being, but she doesn't come across as one. And she makes the point here that all these different restarts and relaunches, because they can't get it right, and it's because what they're working with. There's just nothing there that's genuine. There isn't anything about Hillary Clinton that there is to get in touch with, because all of that is withheld. Here's a pull quote from the story. "There's almost no point in debating whether Hillary Clinton's a real person or a good candidate or even one with a certain axis of political aspirations if the next topic in the discussion is going to be something either totally imaginary or morally devoid to the point of insanity. We don't need a real or a fake Hillary Clinton or to bother determining which one is which. We're hardly even going to talk about the one we already have." It really makes the point. Who is this woman? After all of these years, why do they have to keep reintroducing her? After all these decades, after all of this public living that she has done, why does she remain such a mystery? And why can't the people in charge of her campaign, including her, just introduce her, have her launch her campaign, and have her... In other words, what I've always said, she doesn't connect, either with voters, with her audience, or what have you. She just doesn't. She's aloof. Even when she's near you on a stage or in a round table situation or a circle in the square, she still is this distant figure that you really don't trust and you don't know. And the point of this story is that it's impossible for her to bridge those distances and that gap simply because of who she is. She's just not genuine. Everything about her is fabricated. calculated, fake, or whatever, from situation to situation, day to day, story to story, dealing with the next scandal after the next scandal after the next scandal. It really is a fascinating piece. The fact that it's in Rolling Stone. I mean, it's nothing you don't know. It's just the fact that it appears in an accredited leftist publication. I'll tell you, it illustrates that there is quite a bit of unease, more than they would let on, about the Hillary candidacy. And now you've got Biden, and he's, he's toying with the idea of getting in and really, really relying on the words of his dying son as the emotional Kickstarter for the campaign. You've got Bernie Sanders out there, and he's doing what he's doing. Oh, you know how I have made the point that the powers that be in the party are never really going to let Bernie Sanders be the nominee because he means it. He means all this anti-corporate stuff. And the dirty little secret is the Democrat Party has become the party of the rich. Well, there was a piece of Stephen Hayward at Powerline found a piece in the New York Times written by Thomas B. Edsall. When did this? It was a few days ago. I must have been when I was out sick. How did Democrats become favorites of the rich? See, folks, don't doubt me. I mean, even the New York Times, and they're worried about it. That's why the Times is writing about it. Times writes about these things to warn the Democrats. You guys better be on the lookout. It's becoming quite noticeable that you guys are the party of the rich. Democrats now depend as much on affluent voters as on low-income voters. Democrats represent a majority of the richest congressional districts. And the party's elected officials are more responsive to the policy agenda of the well-to-do than the average voter. The party and its candidates have come to rely on the elite, 0.1% of the voting age population, for a full 25% of their financial backing, and on large donors of another quarter. Stop and think about that. The party, the Democrats and its candidates, have come to rely on the elite 0.1% of the voting age population for 25% of their donations. In this respect, the Democrat Party, its elected officials, have come to resemble their Republican counterparts far more than the public focus on polarization would lead you to expect. The current popularity of Bernie Sanders and his presidential candidacy notwithstanding, the mainstream of the Democrat Party supports centrist positions ranging from expanded free trade to stricter control of government budgets, time limits, welfare for the poor. The Democrat Party has in many respects become the party of deregulated markets for the rich. See, don't doubt me on this, folks. It's becoming patently obvious to everybody. The New York Times, they're not writing about this with great excitement and pride. They are very, 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 very much worried. And they're trying to warn the Democrats that they're about to give up this identity they have with the little guy and the blue-collar people and all of that. Back after this. Don't go away. Okay, we got that Homeland clip, and Cookie's cleaning it up a bit. But there was some obscenities in there, cleaning up just a little bit. We'll have it shortly. Here is Rocco in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Hey, Rocco, I'm glad you called. Great to have you on Open Line Friday. Hi.
Hey, Rush, you sound good.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because if you could hear me as I do, it wouldn't be good. My voice, we have great audio processing here, but I'm telling you, it's very, very weak today, so I'm glad it doesn't sound that way.
Rush, I'd like to take advantage of this Open Line Friday to talk about something not so political, because as you always point out, everything's political. But I'm not watching any more NFL games to the end of the month, or at least until I stop seeing all this pink. I can't take it anymore.
Really bothering you?
Yes, Rush, it's bothering me. It's just part of a larger. I'm really tired of watching and listening to every minority under the sun put their grievance out there for me to have to, shoved down my throat.
Well, the reason they do is because that's how they advance. If they portray themselves as victims of you and others in the majority, then they're going to get what they want. All they have to do is claim they're offended. The NFL in this pink business, it's an attempt to attract women as fans, as paying customers. It's an attempt to show solidarity. Thing is, there are a lot of cancers out there. And there are a lot of cancers that are more deadly than breast cancer. So this was that's why you can't take the politics out of things. I mean, this was obviously specifically chosen for a specific marketing reason. And it's the whole month of October. That means you're not going to be watching the NFL here. It's only October 9th. So you've got 22 more days, 3 weeks of NFL football that you're going to have to boycott.
Hey, Rush. What if they were to take all the money they spend, and I can imagine how many uniforms, all the paraphernalia that they have to turn pink, okay, take that revenue and donate it to breast cancer research?
Well, what they'll tell you is that all of that pink that you see translates to sales of the items, licensed merchandise, on NFL websites, team websites, and in retail outlets where NFL gear is sold. Even down to the point with the pink bow on the football. So they'll tell you that's promoting sales of these units, and that's where they'll tell you the dollars go. Anyway, I am hearing more references to the pink being annoying this year than any prior season. Stay with the phones because it's Open Line Friday. David, San Angelo, Texas. Great to have you, sir. Hi.
Mr. Limbaugh.
Sir.
I cannot believe I'm actually talking to you after all this time.
Well, here you are. I'm glad you made it through.
Me too. Quick and to the point, Mitt Romney, Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
I believe that he would be a wonderful speaker. I called this when I heard Boehner was backing out. I told my mother about it. He's ethical. He's honest. You can't bull rush this guy. We know what the media is going to do to him.
Right.
When he comes out and they're going to call him a loser, they're going to call him a has-been, yada, yada, yada. But he would be ethical. I don't see how anybody can't see that, but of course I'm not a liberal.
Well, I mean, nobody. Well, now wait just a second. You have forgotten. Mitt Romney stood idly by while a man and his employee's wife died, and Romney didn't care, and Romney didn't pay his taxes for 10 years, and Romney put the family dog on the roof of the station wagon on family vacation for 2 weeks, where it got thirsty and sweaty. Well, the dog's no sweat, the heat and everything else. Romney is a mean guy, doesn't pay his taxes, and he's heartless. Woman died.
Well, bypass.
What's that?
Well, bypass all that, but he's still a good guy.
No, just what the media said about him last time.
Yeah, they tried to crucify him, and they'll do it again.
They didn't try. They did.
You're right.
I mean, the bottom line is that they did. By the way, Paul Ryan's name surfaced in this. What do you want to call this? This fight, this quest, this whatever it was, and it was looking like Ryan might have a chance at this, at Speaker of the House. Now, some people would not have been happy about it because, hey, it's gotten tough there. A lot of people think Paul Ryan has sold out. He may be thinking about it, but his chance just went up in smoke because he got the coveted endorsement of Luis Gutierrez. Now, Luis Gutierrez, for those of you who don't know, Luis Gutierrez is Mr. Amnesty in the House. He's a Democrat from Chicago. And he's been greasing the skids for Obama's executive amnesty for almost a year now. He's been making the getting the preparatory work done. He's one of the biggest supporters of amnesty for illegals in the country. He is militant on it. He's been vocal. He's been demanding it. He's even getting on Obama's case for dragging his feet about it. So, Paul Ryan's name gets floated as in the mix, and hey, and you know what, Paul, I might, well, yeah, this could happen. I might want to do this. Then it starts getting some momentum, and here comes Luis Gutierrez. Oh, man, Paul Ryan, that's exactly what this place needs. Thud. Thud. That's the last thing he needs is the endorsement of Luis Gutierrez. Let's take this a different direction. You know, in addition to this race for the speakership going on, there's also a presidential primary taking place. And the leaders of the presidential primary have about as much in common with the people in the establishment who want to be speaker as you and I have with the Bosnians. So given that Trump and Carson and Fiorina are in the top tier of Republican presidential candidates, what happens in the House? What is it that happens in the House that strengthens, say, Trump? What would be something that would help the Trump campaign in this House Speaker race? No. The exact. How about what I'm hearing now is that Boehner may stay on longer than what he said, given the problems they're having coming up with a credible replacement. Well, the more Boehner stays, and what does Boehner represent to people? Status quo, no good, got to get off of this. Boehner represents the problem. That gives Trump added strength. It helps Trump solidify what he's running against within his own party and elsewhere. It gives Trump the opportunity, and Fiorina and Carson at the same time. It helps them further identify as not members of this club in Washington that can't shoot straight. If, on the other hand, the House speakership would happen to go to, say, conservative outsider member of the conservative caucus, I don't know that would necessarily hurt Trump, but could you agree that in terms of the Republican presidential campaign, a milquetoast speaker helps them? Or am I suffering still the ravages of this virus and not thinking straight? I may have a point, right? I could be wrong about this. You know, I should have added a caveat to this program, and that is anything I say today, I get a chance to withdraw on Monday. No, I don't take cold medicine because it doesn't work. Once they got rid of Zicam, that's the only thing that worked for me. And once they got rid of those swabs, NyQuil, that stuff, I just feel drugged up for long after the stuff is supposed to stop working. So no, I just deal with it. I don't think there is any common cold or fever medicine out there, flu. I mean, it's not a, whatever, it's a virus. There's no cure for it. You just have to endure it. And any medicine that suppresses the symptoms, they don't work on me. So as a result, I may not be 100% focused here, even though I think so. I'm going to assert now the privilege of revising and extending my remarks on Monday, anything I say today. I'm sure you people will understand. Who's next? John in Raleigh, North Carolina. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush, how you doing? Real privileged to talk to you. Hey, thanks a lot for the Rush Revere books. Just want to let you know how much my kids enjoyed reading them.
Thank you, sir. Very appreciate that.
No problem. Get to the point. Listen, I'm down here in the 2nd District here in North Carolina that Renee Elmers represents. It's a strange coincidence that she seems to be all of a sudden getting tangled up here with McCarthy and all the allegations that seem to be coming out about some kind of illicit affair, all of which, we have no idea of knowing if that's true or not. Look, the bottom line is she's not a conservative. She doesn't support conservative values here in this district, and quite frankly, she never has.
Oh, wait, hold it just a second, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Renee Elmers seek office on the premise that she was a conservative and was going to stop Obamacare and was going to implement all these conservative ideas?
No, you're absolutely right. And it's the typical bait and switch that we see with a lot of these, professionalized political class.
Okay,
where,
so she campaigned as a conservative, but she never has been, as you say.
No, and you just look to the voting record. It's quite frank. I mean, you can look at Conservative Review. They ranked her very low, and justifiably so. So, and she doesn't really do a great job supporting the military community here either.
But you still hope the rumors are not true.
No, of course not. And, nobody wants to see that because, to the second point, a couple of years ago when she came out here to Fort Bragg to visit with our senior leaders, like she does pretty regularly, some of them were severely reprimanded for some inappropriate email comments. And it was locker room humor, and it was in bad taste, but, these guys are held to a higher standard, and their careers were ruined over things like this, allegations like this. So it's just the political hypocrisy, again, is beyond belief, and it's in our own house.
Yeah, and because this kind of stuff on the Democrat side is a resume enhancement.
Yeah, absolutely, and great point. But again, we need to do a better job at the local level vetting these people and making sure that we get.
Wait a minute. How you? Now that's a good point. How are you supposed to? When somebody comes to you and convinces you that they are conservative and that they're going to stop Obama whenever they can, they're going to go represent the views and the values of the district. What are you supposed to base the fact that they're lying to you on?
Well, you've got to look at the established record. I mean, none of these people just show up and run for office. They all start at some local level. And so that's a great point, too. We have to get involved at the local level. You're talking city council, county commissioner.
Yeah, but let me focus the question even. Why was Renee Elmers believed? You said people need to do a better job vetting. Well, I assume you're talking about the voters. What did they miss? Was it there to spot that she wasn't what she said she was?
There are, yeah. So when you look at her background, when you look at what she was doing in the private sector, she's got a nursing background, and she's very involved in the medical industry here in the county. And you can tell by the causes that she supported that that she wasn't going to advance any of these agendas that were very important to us. And you got to dig deep, and you got to look, and you got to read local news reports, local articles. I mean, the stuff is out there. You just got to look. Okay, all right. Was your claim? It was there to know, and so this is on the voters. Then the voters screwed up. They should have known that she was lying. That's I can see that point of view. I mean, a lot of people do think voters are stupid. American people in general are stupid. Gullibility and stupid are two different things. Believing what you want to believe. And look, I don't know how she sold it. I don't know. But apparently it was enough to get elected a number of times. On this business of the affair. No, not on this business of the affair. They're really, until this is what it is or what it isn't, we've done enough. I have the audio soundbite from Homeland that I hyped moments ago. We'll get to that right after this. Don't go away. Okay, Friday, grab audio soundbite number 43. This is Showtime's Homeland on Sunday night. It premiered at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's now Showtime on demand. It's on the Showtime anytime. It's on the Showtime app. It's pretty much anywhere you want to watch it now. And he's in a meeting of CIA analysts and executives. He's just come back undercover from Syria. And F. Murray Abraham is the character that is speaking to him. Well, no, it's actually F. Murray Abraham's his boss, but it's a different character speaking to him. And the question he's asked is our strategy working?
Is our strategy working?
What strategy? Tell me what the strategy is. I'll tell you if it's working. See, that right there is the problem because they have a strategy. They're gathering right now in Raqqa by the tens of thousands, hidden in the civilian population, cleaning their weapons, and they know exactly why they're there.
Why is that?
They call it the end times. What do you think the beheadings are about? The crucifixions in Deir Hafer, the revival of slavery. Do you think they make this up? It's all in the book. Their book. The only book they ever read. They read it all the time. They never stop. They're there for one reason and one reason only. To die for the caliphate and usher in a world without infidels. That's their strategy. And it's been that way since the 7th century. So do you really think that a few special forces teams are going to put a dent in that?
Well, what would you do?
You offering me a promotion?
I'm offering you a hypothetical.
200,000 American troops on the ground indefinitely to provide security and support for an equal number of doctors and elementary school teachers.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Then I better get back there.
What else? What else would make a difference?
Hit reset.
Meaning what?
Meaning pound Raqqa into a parking lot.
Hit reset, meaning pound Raqqa. Raqqa is a fictional city here. It's in Syria. This is meant to... You know, it's amazing. This season premiered Sunday night. It was written months ago. Filming on this episode probably started. Let's see, airs in 1st of October. They didn't start filming this till September. So there was enough ISIS in the news that they could safely build the opening episode around this theme, even though the episode centered in Berlin. You know, I wondered when this season began, how much more do they have here? What have they not explored? And I was pleasantly surprised with the opening episode. There's really, really, really a lot of good television on right now. You know what? A lot of it is suffering because they're losing ground on how to calculate who's watching. If you just go by Nielsen numbers, it looks like television viewing, TV viewing may be down, but people watching shows is not down. They're watching it different ways other than on conventional TV screens in the family sedan, family living room, or what have you. They're watching on their devices and so forth. And they're watching it delayed, streamed, or what have you. And there's just incredible content out there right now. And Homeland is one of these shows. I want you to listen to this again. This goes by pretty fast here. But the whole thing, he's brought in, he's on the ground Syria, and he's being asked, okay, is what we're doing fighting ISIS working? Is our strategy working?
Is our strategy working?
What strategy? Tell me what the strategy is. I'll tell you if it's working. See, that right there is the problem because they have a strategy. They're gathering right now in Raqqa by the tens of thousands, hidden in the civilian population, cleaning their weapons, and they know exactly why they're there.
Why is that?
They call it the end times. What do you think the beheadings are about? The crucifixions in Deir Hafer, the revival of slavery. You think they make this up? It's all in the book. Their book. The only book they ever read. They read it all the time. They never stop. They're there for one reason and one reason only. To die for the caliphate and usher in a world without infidels. That's their strategy. And it's been that way since the 7th century. So do you really think that a few special forces teams are going to put a dent in that?
Well, what would you do?
You offering me a promotion?
I'm offering you a hypothetical.
200,000 American troops on the ground indefinitely to provide security and support for an equal number of doctors and elementary school teachers.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Then I better get back there.
What else? What else would make a difference?
Hit reset.
Meaning what?
Meaning pound Raqqa into a parking lot.
The point of this exchange was to illustrate that here we got a guy on the ground undercover who knows exactly what's going on, is brought back to report on how our strategy is working and tells him we don't have one. And it illustrates that, and it's a TV show. And in the TV show, the writers, the point they're making in this show is that our people in charge of defeating and stopping all of this have not even yet admitted what we're up against. And folks, it's eerie because that is Obama. That is this administration. They won't even label what's going on, what it really is, will they? 1 in 3 vegetarians admits to eating meat when drunk. And a high school quarterback has been suspended for inappropriately touching the center. How do you not? Huh? Of humanity and all who live. I'm Rush Limbaugh, and it's Friday. That means...
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday!
One big exciting broadcast hour remains. Open Line Friday. You get to determine what it is we talk about when we go to the phones. The telephone number is 282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. We have a woman on hold I'll get to in a moment who's also upset with all the pink in the National Football League. And Snurdly, is anybody commenting on this? I'm hearing this more and more from people this season, being upset with all the pink. I mean, in the past, people have commented on it and let it go. But it seems to be intensifying this year. I'll tell you something. I did something last Sunday I haven't done, and I don't know if it means anything. I haven't stopped to analyze it. But I went out and played golf Sunday afternoon on an NFL Sunday for the first time in 10 years. I looked at the slate of games. I said, you know what? I'd rather go out and play golf. The Steelers had played on Thursday night. That's it. That was it. I knew I'd get home in time to see the second half of the late game and then whatever the Sunday night game was, which I bumped out of that after about an hour. Yeah, no, I know. It's you know, there are a lot of things. There are many, many things, folks. I'm asking myself, are my interests changing simply because as I age, my areas of interest change? As I age, do the things I used to have a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for just naturally change and transfer to other things? I don't know. So I've started comparing myself to other people my age, and like I've been an ardent NFL fan a lot longer than other people my age are. So maybe I'm a laggard in this regard. But no, not panicking over it. It is what it is. You know, I just accept it. But I do catalog and recognize you wouldn't have gotten me out of the house on an NFL Sunday to go play golf last season before. It just wouldn't have happened. And last Sunday, I didn't even stop to think about it. I just automatically accepted the invitation. Bam. Might have split second. I said to myself, Steelers played Thursday. Don't care about anything else this week. Bam, I'm out of there. And you know what? I may go play Sunday again. Instead of, and this season's going by pretty fast. You know, we're already going to be at week 4 or 5. Yeah. Yeah, the late game on Sunday is the one that you got the Cowboys and the Patriots. Tom Brady and the Patriots in Dallas. What are you worried they're going to go in and shred the boys? Is that what you're worried about? It probably is going to happen. The Patriots are looking like they did back in 2007. Unstoppable. You knew this was going to happen. You know, the league tries to put them all in jail with that Deflategate thing. Sue them out of existence. What do you think the Patriots are going to do? They're going to come out all fired up. This whole thing has probably added a couple of years to Brady's career, just in terms of intense motivation to show them. It's the way it's always worked. Clemson University, ladies and gentlemen, this is from Campus Reform. Clemson University issued an apology to students on Thursday after what appears to be a small group of students were offended by an annual Mexican cuisine event put on by University Dining Services. Clemson Dining Maximum Mexican Night has become a student favorite over the last several years, and this year was no different at first. Everything was going great. Students were loving the food and the festivities, but who doesn't love tacos and burritos and who knows whatever else, nachos, except there were 2 students who went on Twitter to voice their displeasure with the Screwel's decision to host such a culturally insensitive event. While a few on Twitter were offended, the overwhelming preponderance of students registered absolutely no reaction at all. The one student who did respond to the Twitter complaints wrote, "I'm offended, you're offended." Clemson senior Austin Pendergast told Campus Reform he felt the post-event uproar was ridiculous. This is something that Clemson Dining has done for years, without any sort of backlash. People love the cultural nights in the dining halls. So what's next? They're going to take away all potato-based food so not to offend students of Irish descent? Remove the stir-fry station so Asian-American students don't feel as if they're being misrepresented? When does it end? Great, great question, student, but it may be a little bit too late to be asking this now. University, however, took a different position. Dr. Doug Hallenbeck, Clemson University Senior Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, apologized for the event's flattened cultural view of Mexican culture. You got that? Dr. Doug Hallenbeck, Clemson University Senior Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, not the Senior Associate President, not the Junior Associate Vice President, not the Junior Associate Vice President. No, this is the Senior Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, apologized for the event's flattened cultural view of Mexican culture. Hallenbeck said if the mission of university housing and dining, the mission? It's a restaurant, it's a cafeteria. What even the mission? If the mission, it is the mission of university housing and dining to create supportive and challenging environments that enrich and nourish lives. We failed to live out our mission yesterday, and we sincerely apologize. This is absurd. Mexican students supposedly offended at their native cuisine being served? When everybody likes it? I mean, people weren't throwing it up against the walls. They weren't packaging it up and sending it back to Mexico. They were eating it. They were giving every indication they thoroughly enjoyed it. What in the world was there to be offended by? Answer, nothing. This is nothing but a scam. And here comes this big major university kowtowing to two students and then apologizing. Something about the mission of the cafeteria having failed. Good gosh. I mean, this is just, it's absurd. And then there's this. This is some CBS Eyeball News. In Oregon, a freshman quarterback at West Salem, Oregon, has been suspended from school for what has been labeled as inappropriate touching of another student. Garrett Moore, who is the freshman team's third-string quarterback, said the incident happened during a team practice when he was taking snaps under center. Garrett Moore, who says he was instructed by the center on how to receive the snap, described the incident to the Statesman Journal. Quote, "He wanted me to go way up there with my hands, and it felt very uncomfortable. I was like moving my hands, and I touched him, and he started laughing. I guess I tickled him. I wouldn't mean to. It's kind of weird." So the center, Garrett Moore is the quarterback. He says he was instructed by the center on how to receive the snap, which meant, for those of you who don't play football, it was the center saying, here's where I want you to put your hands. So the quarterback did that. Now the quarterback's being suspended for inappropriately touching the center. Garrett Moore was called to an assistant principal's office a couple of days after the incident and was asked to give his version of what happened. And then the principal talked to the alleged victim, who then gave a different version of events. A security guard then escorted Garrett Moore, the third-string quarterback, back to the principal's office and was asked if he tickled the other boy in practice. I'm like, I guess. He was laughing when I touched him. I mean, I didn't mean to say tickle. I said tickle because he laughed. He calls my mom. He makes it sound like I'm a complete pervert. She comes to get me. Garrett Moore was then suspended for 3 days and sent home with a written referral. Student inappropriately touched another student during football practice. His mom, who calls the entire situation absolutely absurd, said she will appeal the suspension to the Salem Kaiser Director of High Schools. I saw this. I said, this is one of these Scott Ott satire pieces, and I, El Rushville, am not going to fall for this. I am not going to get bamboozled by this. I'm not going to get roped in. I'm not going to get hooked. I'm going to ignore it. And then I saw it again somewhere, completely different sources, CBS News on it. It looks to me like if Garrett Moore's telling the truth, the center is the one who wanted the hands in a certain position and then got what he wanted, and now the quarterback has been accused of inadvertent touching. You know, not a lot of you people have done this. There are very few people who have played center on a football team and very few people who have played quarterback, I mean, compared to the whole population. But there's something that happens there every snap. I mean, you can't avoid it. It would be called inappropriate touching. And the mother is the one who gets it right. It's totally, totally absurd. You know, we had a story, was it earlier this week or late last week? Might have been both. It was a story on millennials and a popular misconception about them. I think it was earlier this week. Might have been Monday. There was that for the longest time here, a couple of years, the analysis of millennials has been that they don't want to own anything, that they are really and truly a genuinely different generation. They don't want to own a car. They're really not interested in cars, not like other generations have been. They don't want to own homes or condominiums. They're into the sharing community and renting and so forth, but they just, and it was presented to us such a way that we were to think that these millennials were an entirely different cultural group of people, and that it was unique in the sense that every prior generation, American dream, was defined as home ownership. Here comes a whole generation that's poo-pooing that. And every prior generation has always had its share of people that are car crazy. And here comes a generation that couldn't care less about either of those, and they really don't want to own anything. They want to be getting around on mass transit or bicycles. They don't want to plant roots anywhere. Their favorite thing in the world is Uber. And then we had a story that was the contradictory story was Monday or Tuesday, that was all wrong. That actually these millennials are no different than any other generation. It was BS. The fact is they can't afford cars because of the economy. They can't afford to buy homes. Everything's out of their reach in terms of ownership. They can't get approved for loans. They've all got such student loan debt, or many of them, that owning anything is out of the question. And so it was largely a cover sentiment that was created by the left and the media to try to cast these millennials as an entirely new group of people, anti-capitalist. That was what they were trying to make them out to be. Anti-traditional capitalist, anti-traditional America, pro-progressive, all this new stuff that was so foreign to everybody else, and they were so, therefore, light years ahead of us. They were a much cleaner people, a much better people, blah, blah, blah. It turns out all that smoke and mirrors. And it was all based on the fact that they can't afford any of this stuff because of the Obama economy. The difference is the millennials themselves do not blame Obama. They don't blame the government. They just think the country's best days are behind it. They just think it's luck of the draw. They just happen to have been born when America starts its inevitable decline because nothing can stay a superpower forever. And they do not associate this decline and this malignant economy, stagnant economy, with any government policy. Well, now there's an addendum to this. And this story is at Town Hall. It's a column by Matt Vestmits based on research that the millennials are not nearly as monolithic as has been thought. And in fact, younger millennials, those between 18 and 20, are not nearly as liberal as older millennials. And the older millennials, we're talking about the ones that eschewed ownership, had no interest in cars, didn't want to own a house. We were told, and all this is BS. It was just the fact they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the money for it. They didn't have the jobs. There wasn't any job prospects. Look at housing prices where most of the country just out of reach. Even starter homes out of reach. So a lie was concocted. Now, they don't care anyway. They want to rent. They sharing economy. These are much more communal people. It was an idea to try to present this generation as light years ahead of us. Intellectually, emotionally, they were much more well-adjusted, much more anti-capitalist, didn't care about money. And it turns out it was all a crock. And now we find out, once millennials get a job and start making between $40,000 and $60,000 a year, their support for income redistribution and other liberal policies drops precipitously. A Harvard Institute of Politics poll found something a bit interesting regarding millennials and voting patterns, and that is that younger ones aren't nearly as liberal. Younger millennials aren't as left-leaning. They grew up in a different time, post 9/11, and in the midst of a major recession. Yet once they get a job and start making between 40 and 60 grand every year, that's when they start getting, just like everybody does, with keeping more of what they earn rather than being forced to give it away. And that attitude prevails on a number of other liberal policies. The bottom line is, liberals or millennials aren't nearly as liberal as when they start making money. And they're not nearly as liberal as we've been told that they are. And there's big news in the global warming front. I mean big, big news that could blow up the entire scam yet again. And it'll be ignored. I'll tell you about it when we get back. Don't go away. Back to the phones. Open line Friday, Worcester, Massachusetts. It's Ruth. And you, too, not happy with all the pink in the NFL, I guess.
No, and I missed the Patriots game last week because they were on a bye, so I didn't watch football either.
Well, there you go. See, that's...
Yeah. It's just such a pleasure to be speaking with my favorite words literalist, and I'd like to follow up and applaud that gentleman that called about pink and football. I want to take it a step further and say that I find it unseemly and totally inappropriate. I'm watching a sports event, and I'm going to be reminded of, quote-unquote, the big C. I mean, think of all the people in the hospital that's their source of entertainment. Do they want to be reminded of where they are? No. We watch football to have an hour to ourselves, to watch and root for our teams, and to keep subjecting us to this. It just bothers me. I'm sorry.
Well, but the league would tell you they're taking advantage of all this tune-in to raise consciousness levels about this, to create in the public's mind that breast cancer is a huge deal. A lot of people suffer from it, and you're not doing enough about it. Donate money. Don't you show you care. We in the NFL care. Look at all the pink. You should care. Donate.
Then do the fundraising after the event. Really. I mean, the whole thing is about money anyway. You can't give us a break for 60 minutes? I'm sorry.
Well, it's not 60 minutes. It's like 3 hours. But I get,
I know.
I get your...
But of all the things to talk to you about, Rush, I'm just so pleased. You make me laugh, cry. I stomp my feet. I gnash my teeth. It's wonderful to hear you and to have you promote and to say the things that you do out there. I very much appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this, especially, any day I appreciate it, but I'm really glad you got through today. I thank you so much. And I caught your reference to literalist. Are you a literalist too?
I try to be. You're my hero.
Let me tell you, it's a lonely existence. It is a lonely... I mean, you have to ask people 3 times what they're saying. You have to explain yourself 4 times. It's just a lonely existence to be a literalist because so few people are. Nobody says what they really mean. They dance around it or whatever. So it's a painful... I wish I wasn't sometimes. I really do. But I can't stop it. I mean, we all are who we are. Okay, we got this big global warming news, and it is coming right up. Matt in Pueblo, Colorado. Great to have you on Open Line Friday. Hello.
It's great and honor to talk to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I am a Rush baby. I'm raising 2 Rush babies.
Well,
I've served in the military. I've been down to Laredo, Texas on Noble Eagle 1, and what Trump says is right. Now, my whole thing, though, is recently Israel has found a huge deposit of oil. They're saying it's like 35 times bigger than what they've ever found before anywhere in the Middle East. It's in the Golan Heights region. Who's not to say that, with Russia being in Syria now, they might try to attack Israel just to get a hold of the Golan Heights.
Well, wait. I have not heard of this discovery of oil in Israel. I've read novels about it, but I've not heard of a massive discovery of oil in the Golan Heights.
It came out about 2 days ago.
Well, then I was laid up and I missed it. I have not seen a word about that. As I say, I've read a couple of really great novels about how such a discovery would totally change the geopolitics of the Middle East, but I didn't know such a discovery had actually happened.
I think the UK Daily Mail had an article in it. I believe it was yesterday.
Okay. Well, what's the upshot of this? What were you going to say?
Well, I mean, I just find it kind of strange that, number one, Iran finds a huge cache of natural uranium in there after the Iran deal, and then all of a sudden, Israel has oil, and Russia's already there.
Wait, Russia's already where?
In Syria.
Okay, now wait a minute now. Where did you say the oil has been discovered, Israel or the Golan Heights?
It's the Golan Heights was taken by the Israelis during the 10-day war, I think, of 1967.
Yes.
And the oil is found in the southern part of the Golan Heights.
Okay. I'm something in my head says Israel does not have the Golan Heights anymore, that they gave it up or lost it again. Damn it, I'm totally confused by this. I need somebody to clarify for me who owns the Golan Heights right now before I can go forward with this.
Okay.
A game-changing oil reserve discovered so it is in Israel. So I'm getting a flash note here. Well, if that's true, then it does. Totally. But your point that I got the Iranians recently discovered uranium after the deal's done, which means it was always there. This is just a... But the Russians being in Syria, what's that got to do with oil in the Golan Heights?
Well, the Russians right now, they're saying that they're attacking ISIS. Depending on who you listen to, is that they're actually attacking not just ISIS, but the rebels that the Obama administration is backing.
Right.
Who's not to say that after they get done with whatever they're going to do in Syria, they're going to say, you know what? You guys never deserved to have the Golan Heights in the first place from the first.
Oh, so you think the Russians, after they take care of our allies in Syria, are going to move on Israel's oil supply in the Golan?
Exactly.
Oh, that's what your theory is. Okay.
Yeah.
You're asking what would stop Putin if he wanted to make it. Well, Israel has nukes. That's what would stop him.
But Israel really doesn't have United States backing it up anymore because of Obama.
Well, that's true, but I think that this discovery of oil is going to give Israel all kinds of independence. That it gives it new power and independence. And besides, there's no love lost between Israel and Obama anyway. If this much oil, it could replace the primary asset they get from us, which is money.
Yeah.
Now, Syria, here's my point of confusion on the Golan Heights. Syria has not given up its claim on the Golan Heights. Therefore, it remains disputed. Whether it's a legitimate dispute or not, Syria still claims that the Golan is theirs. And by the way, it is right down the hill. I have been to the Golan Heights. It's one of the most fascinating places. I got a tour up there with a young member of the Israeli Defense Forces. And it's where they take you when they want to illustrate the danger that they're in and how surrounded they are and how people cannot envision it. You go up to the Golan, and they can point to every nation that wants to wipe Israel out, and you can see it. You can see Syria. You can see Jordan. You can see every one of these threatening regions from the Golan. Beautiful place, by the way. And they tell you how vulnerable they are as a result of this. So oil up there, well, that's going to increase the dispute. So I see your point. You think Putin, given the weakness of the U.S. and the resolve of Obama to basically abandon the region, is going to leave it wide open for Putin to go in and claim it from Israel. And without U.S. support, Israel is not going to have much of a defense against an onslaught of Putin. But that's not necessarily I would never underestimate the Israelis. But I have to admit, you caught me short of this. I still don't know how much oil we're talking about. And I'm going to have to, I think it was, Joel Rosenberg wrote a big novel about this that I read. It was a significant find. What do you know off the top of your head, Ryan, how big this find is, how they're describing it?
What I heard, it was like 350 meters of strata that they found of it. They're saying it was a significant find, well over 100 times anything that they found in the Middle East before.
100 times more than they've... Now, that's 100 times more than...
Because I was looking at the UK Daily Mail earlier, and let's see.
Well, what I've got here is that there's an Israeli subsidiary of a U.S. company, Genie Energy, confirmed the find in an interview with Israel's Channel 2 TV, but conceded that until the oil is actually extracted, they won't be sure of how much and the quality of the oil that has been discovered. Mm-hmm. So the amount is unknown. Well, if it's a big find, if it's enough of a find, well, it's a game changer is the bottom line. But without knowing any more than that, don't know how much. One thing it is going to do is turn Israel into an even bigger target now. In terms of getting them off the land, wiping them off, marching them into the Mediterranean, and because the Palestinians are going to be right in there. It's ours, it's ours, it's ours, and so forth. So I'm sorry to be caught short on this, folks. I literally did not know about this. I thought this was a story in a novel. I've got to take a break here now, but we'll be back and continue after this. Don't go away. Okay, let me get to this real quickly. Last Saturday, conservative Australian columnist Miranda Devine revealed that an Australian engineer claims to have fixed 2 errors in the basic climate model, which underpins all climate science. Now, keep in mind, global warming is the result of computer model predictions only, no hard data. It never has been based on data, only on model predictions. The person making this claim is a climate modeler for the government's Australian Greenhouse Office. He has 6 degrees in applied mathematics. What he found is the new corrected model finds the climate's sensitivity to carbon dioxide, CO2, is much lower than was thought. While some U.S. blogs have begun to relay the news, and I have seen this in American blogs, the nation's establishment press is ignoring it. The UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has overstated future global warming by as much as 10 times, says the expert. His name is Dr. David Evans. He said, yep, CO2 has an effect, but it's about 1/5 or 1/10 of what the UN says it is. CO2 is not driving the climate. It has caused less than 20% of the global warming in the last few decades. He says his discovery ought to change everything about global warming. And he's being ignored because, of course, it isn't about global warming. It isn't about science. It's not about truth. It isn't about saving the climate or anything else. It's about advancing a leftist, global, big, gigantic government agenda, is all it is. As we have stated countless times. Anyway, another error was found in the computer models that explains why the models have missed the 18 years of no warming. So there are 2 things. The total overestimate of the importance of CO2 in terms of greenhouse warming, it's not nearly as impactful, which only makes sense. We exhale it. It's all over. It can't be responsible for destruction, or we would be the end of the earth, and it would never have been. Anyway, the whole thing's absurd, folks, and this is much more common sense. It's been entered into this picture. The oil discovery in Israel, it is said to be that it could be huge. I've had a chance to read a little bit. Depending on how deep it is, how many layers, it could be a gigantic find. This is what the UK Daily Mail is saying. So if all that's true, and we won't know for a while, there's no question it's a game changer. But it's just going to focus enemies on Israel even more. That's the last thing anybody wants in that region, is for Israel to become even more empowered. So the claim will be it isn't Israel's, it's Syria's, or it's whatever you watch. They're just not going to sit by and let this happen. Okay, folks, that's it. Another exciting, busy broadcast week in the can, even if it was only 3 days for me. And this is going to be the last time somebody knows something that I don't know. The last time that ever happens on this show. I'm going to spend all week being ticked off about this, all weekend. I won't want to be my golf ball.